Hello, Chris and... You don't know Chris? Chris.
Christine.
Hello, Chris and Rosie Ramsey here from the podcast Shag Marinoid, and I don't know the next bit.
Well,
Acast and the IAB Upfronts 2022. Welcome to Acast and the IAB Upfronts 2022. Hello, Chris and Rosie Ramsey here from the podcast Shag Marinoid, and welcome to Acast and the IAB. I got it right.
A few moments later.
Hello, Chris and Rosie Ramsey here from the podcast Shag Marinoid, and welcome to Acast and the IAB Upfronts 2022.
We've got loads of amazing things to show you today, but first, please welcome to the stage your hosts from Acast.
Hi. When James said king and queen of podcasting, I thought he was actually talking about me and you, and then I forgot about the video, but never mind. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Acast presentation of the IAB podcast Upfronts. I'm Lorna Burn, and with me is Miles Phillip. And over the next few minutes, we're going to get you all up to speed on everything Acast in 2022.
Thanks, Lorna. Hello, everyone. 2022 has been a massive year for Acast. For a start, it's our first full year as a publicly listed company. Don't be shy, IAB. You can clap. Come on, let's go. Yeah, let's get some energy in here. And we've celebrated this year with a number of key advertising launches. But before we get into all of that, let's take it back to basics, shall we? They promised me I'd be mic'd up, so this is a little awkward. If you don't know us, Acast is the world's largest independent podcast platform. Our headquarters are in Stockholm, Sweden, and currently we host over 66,000 podcasts. And that's global. We help our creators grow and monetize their valuable audience with world-class products, tools, and services. How do we do that? Well, way back in 2014, we developed what's known as dynamic ad insertion, which created the podcast advertising industry as we know and love it today. It allows you, our brands and agencies, to serve up-to-date messages to your audiences across a podcast's entire back catalogue, whether that's in pre, mid, or post-ad roll. Dynamic ad insertion powers our three main formats. So traditional ads, sponsorship, where we engage creatively with our podcasters on delivering brand messaging in their own tone of voice. And then finally, branded content, working closely with brands, agencies, and creators to develop bespoke, long-form podcasting content.
So now you know a little bit about us, but let's have a look at where we are in 2022. Earlier this year, we launched a first-of-its-kind set of targeting capabilities called conversational targeting. This is an innovative advertising tool that dynamically targets content within podcasts. What this means is advertisers can now target the specific subjects that podcasters are talking about, and, coming soon, how they're talking about them. We launched this earlier in the summer with episode-level IAB categories. So, for example, if the Guilty Feminist podcast, normally categorized as a comedy and entertainment show, were to talk about mental health, stress, and anxiety during an episode, then conversational targeting allows brands associated with mental health to be a part of that specific conversation. Yeah. Pretty clever. How it works is each episode is categorized according to the industry standard IAB taxonomy, ensuring ad campaigns are automatically served against episodes of the highest relevance for that brand message. Crucially, this means that as we enter a cookieless world, brands are targeting conversations, not individuals. And whilst the next step in ad tech capabilities is incredibly exciting, we're also serving more partnerships teams than ever before, thanks to our unrivaled access and understanding of our creators' blossoming ecosystems. So let's talk branded content and going beyond the podcast. Of course, podcasts remain an audio-first medium. However, the development of podcasting has also seen creators reach highly engaged and devoted audiences across show-specific social media, experiential events, short-form videos such as YouTube and TikTok, and even live tours. We at Acast are very much the experts in allowing brands to access a creator's entire ecosystem and deliver a multifaceted and well-rounded campaign. So whether it's hosting a Sainsbury's summer soiree with table manners or collaborating with Peter Crouch to create The Lout, a brand new beer from Brewdog, there really is no limit to what we can do here. So please do come and talk to us afterwards if you'd like to hear more about that. Now, all these things aside, we acknowledge that ultimately content is king, and Acast is considered to be the home of podcasting globally. We're lucky enough to have some of the biggest podcasts in the UK, and our roster is continuing to grow. Alongside household favourites such as Shag Married Annoyed and The Football Ramble, this year we re-signed Katherine Ryan's Telling Everybody Everything and welcomed 3 Shots of Tequila, previously a competitor exclusive to Acast. You'll be glad to know that we'll be hearing from both of them in just a second. But we're also home to loads of other massive shows. So, for example, we have The Rest is Politics, which has seen phenomenal growth since its launch earlier this year. They actually announced last week that they're doing a live show at the London Palladium, and tickets sold out in just 7 minutes. We also have Off Menu, a firm listener favourite, hosted by James Acaster and Ed Gamble. My personal favourite, Fern Cotton's Happy Place, another great example of a creator with a blossoming ecosystem. Fern hosts the very, very successful Happy Place Festival every year. And finally, we have The Crazy World of Chatterbix, hosted by comedians Joe Wilkinson and David Earl. And if you haven't heard that one yet, I would highly recommend checking it out.
So now let's talk about some of our most recent shows. So here is just a snapshot of some of the latest and greatest podcasts on the Acast marketplace. So at the beginning of the year, we welcomed That Peter Crouch podcast to the network. And he's now well through his 2nd season with us. But Crouchy isn't the only ex-England international to join us this year. In August, Rio Ferdinand joined us with his Vibe with 5 podcast. And was previous to joining us, he's already one of the most visited football destinations on YouTube and social media, now available in full podcast form. Sticking with football, if I may, we've just announced a new package of football shows called Acast United. I'm talking really loudly, aren't I? I'll try and take that down a little bit. Sorry, guys. So we've brought together 5 smaller podcasts that together champion underrepresented voices in the game, and we deliver that at scale. Very exciting times. So football side, this Black History Month, we also welcome a personal hero of mine, a big name in our household. So Lenny Henry's Black British Lives podcast launched just last week. The Black British Lives Matter. It's a brilliant listen, and honestly, if you haven't listened to it already, I urge you to. He's got some huge guests coming up for the remainder of the run, a full 10-ep series. Highly recommend. Earlier this year, we also launched Jamie Lang and Sophie Hibbou's Nearly Weds. And this could be, I think a lot of people within the office would tell you this is probably one of our ones to watch, solely because in the last sort of month or so, it's absolutely exploded, just keeps going up, and it doesn't show any signs of stopping. And I bought me some corn for popping. Sorry, yeah. I am taking this seriously. Finally, I can now reveal a world exclusive, edge of your seat time. So, as of next week, the GC, Gemma Collins, officially joins the Acast Creator Network. Yeah, very exciting. As you can imagine, we're all absolutely G'd up about reintroducing the Queen of Essex back to listeners. So yeah, very, very exciting times. So goes without saying, we've had a huge year and we're looking forward to an even bigger year next year for the Acast marketplace. Anyway, that's enough from us. For the second part of our presentation, please welcome our very esteemed guests coming to the stage. Put your hands together, why not? So we welcome Katherine Ryan, Abbey from the 3 Shots of Tequila podcast. And she's one of our own, our SVP of Marcoms and Brand, Lizzie Pollard. Woo woo!
Hello.
Great.
Wow, I feel like we should do the TikTok to Beyonce, no? Just me. Hi, guys. Can't believe you're all cheering for me so loud. Just kidding. We all know why we're here, to hear from 2 of the biggest podcasters in the country, if not the world. We have, of course, Katherine Ryan from Telling Everybody Everything, and Abbey from 3 Shots of Tequila.
How you doing, all right?
Right, I'm going to start with an easy one. I just want to hear about how you got into podcasting in the first place. Why did you start your podcast? Do you want to go first, Marv?
Yeah, no pressure. We started The podcast, because we kind of saw a space within that scene, within our scene in the UK in terms of Black UK culture. There wasn't a voice within our scene kind of giving a commentation of what was going on. So we just thought to ourselves we could nail that space, and that's basically why we started it, to be honest, to be a voice, because a lot of podcasts that we were listening to didn't resonate with us. We didn't understand them, or they were informative, but there was nothing else more to it, if that makes sense.
How long ago did you start?
We started a podcast in 2016.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's considered quite old, like by these standards.
Yeah. No, we're OGs in the game, so.
Yeah. And Katherine, what about you? Why did you first start a podcast?
I think it's really interesting that you say that you were filling a gap, that you didn't see a space for what you were looking for, so you became what you were looking for.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of content comes from that. I had just come off a sitcom where I was the executive producer, but I wasn't the only executive producer, and there were a lot of cooks in that kitchen. And I found it just quite exhausting to have to listen to so many creative opinions all the time. And a podcast was a wonderful thing that I could do on Acast and edit myself and produce myself and be totally in charge of all the content from my wardrobe and really escape my family and hide in there. And it wasn't controlled at all by anyone but me. And that's sort of the same vibe as, like, I thought, this doesn't exist for me. And Acast gave me a place to create that.
Right. Well, actually, yeah, talking about control and being able to be very open and honest. So I don't know if anyone listens to Katherine's podcast. She did a great episode back in June called Impossible, wasn't it? After you took a 3-week hiatus from the podcast, which you hadn't planned, which I think you described was to do with your own life choices. You were busy. There was a lot going on. That was a really open and honest podcast. Do you find that, therefore, podcasting allows you to be more honest than you could be on any other medium, whether that's TV or even social?
Yeah, certainly for years, commissioners and gatekeepers and decision makers would say to my agent, oh, we want Katherine for this, but we're worried she might not be warm enough, soft enough. They like to describe women a lot like a duvet. Like totally sourced in Canada. And so what was happening was, in a lot of my other work, I was boxed into, in a way that I enjoyed, having to be funny quickly, be acerbic quickly, do punchlines. And I loved that a podcast was long form and really gave me the confidence that, people will tune in just to hear not necessarily a punchline from me or a structured bit. I could just talk about things, talk about my life. And that was really, really wonderful, really useful for me to find that. And that gave me the confidence to write my book. I never would have written a book if I hadn't done the podcast. I thought no one wanted to listen to the serious or mundane things I had to say, but loads of people are like, tell me what that vitamin was again. Horse chestnut.
Talking about openness, so Marv, you guys started the podcast and you went to a platform exclusively before coming back into the beautiful open podcasting ecosystem.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that decision and why you did that.
I mean, I think when we initially signed with Spotify, it was a great move because it kind of showed everyone like a level up in terms of what we were doing. And it was a good indication that we had been noticed. Obviously, Spotify, we ran campaigns, we had billboards. It was great, but the only issue with that was it limited our listenership. For example, I'm Nigerian. There's a lot of listeners that we had in Nigeria, and I never realized that until we went to Spotify, and I'll be on holiday, and people coming up to me like, what's going on with the podcast? I can't listen to it anymore. And I'm like, why does Spotify, man? It's not in Africa at the moment. I'm like, wow, okay. And one of our other co-hosts, Keith, he's from Zimbabwe, same thing. So there's like little things like that were happening that we were realizing. And even someone else I know that was in prison was saying, everyone used to listen to it in prison, as in like on YouTube. The moment you went to Spotify, we can't actually download the episodes in here, so everyone stopped watching it as well. So it's just like there's little niche listenerships around that you don't realize that add to your pot. So when we've left Spotify now, it makes sense because now, in terms of America, they're more with Apple. So our American listenership should improve, our African listenership should improve, and it's just that thinking behind it, that's why we've done it, to be fair.
Yeah, great. Well, we are so happy to have you back in the open podcasting ecosystem. So it would be remiss of me not to talk about advertising and working with brands. Both of you have done tons of different reads. Katherine, I know you've also worked on some branded content with Now. How do you find that? Like, how do you find working with brands, particularly in the podcast space? Is it quite easy? Do you enjoy it?
I really enjoy it, and I feel like I have a pre-existing organic relationship with a lot of the advertisers that Acast matches me up with. Like, I was shouting from the rooftops about Now specifically for years and years and years because it's how I would access Teen Mom, which is an MTV program that I really connected with because all of our daughters were born the same year, and they were teens and I wasn't, but I identified as one, and I continue to follow their journeys. And so I mean, my podcast is called Telling Everybody Everything. And I like telling people unashamedly about not just what's going on in my life and what I think about things, but there are brands and things in my life that I enjoy. And I think telling people about those in an authentic way, you know, I'm never going to be asked to advertise for something that doesn't match my values or my audience. You know, that's never happened to me with Acast. I love doing it. And I get to write my own ads, which is like a hidden talent that I've discovered of mine. I like doing it.
Great.
I do.
And Marv, I know you guys have worked with likes of WhatsApp, BetterHelp.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about like how have you found it? Did it come quite naturally to you doing the reads, which are sounding great, obviously?
Yeah. I mean, it came naturally to us because on the podcast anyway, you tend to speak about stuff that you use. And that's why I think advertising within podcasts is so good, because if you listen to like a music track and you hear an ad come in, you're like, move, because you want to hear that song. You want to be in your moment. Whereas when you listen to a podcast, you're actually in listening mode. So whatever you're hearing, you're kind of taking in more than you would if you're just listening to music. So as I said, in our podcast, we always speak about stuff, whether it's a gym, a particular product we like using, because it's a general conversation you're having anyway, so our audience resonate. So in terms of the reads, it's just come naturally to us. And again, we won't read anything that don't align with our brand either, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah. Right, we've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to do some quick fire questions, no pressure. Okay. What is your own favourite podcast apart from your own podcast? What do you love listening to?
I listen to my mom's podcast,
Yes.
which she makes on Acast, and it's called Jules Says. Yeah, that is a horrified look that I deserve.
No, do you know what it is? Because that's actually dope that your mum's got a podcast.
No, it isn't.
Oh, no. For you it's not, but for us it is, because it's insight into that older generation. No? Okay.
It's harrowing.
It's cool.
But
Okay.
I have to listen to it.
So your mum's podcast. Marv, do you like her mum's podcast, or do you have a different one that you prefer?
Her mum's podcast.
What's your
I haven't listened
favourite?
to it yet. I will do. I've got to get the name. I think my favourite at the moment, is Jordan Peterson's one. I can't remember what it's called, but Jordan Peterson's one, because he kind of breaks down a lot of things within the mind and the way people think. So I like that podcast.
I think you're brave to say that. My husband listens to that too, and that's a very
serious?
controversial choice.
Oh, serious?
I'm serious. It's on sometimes. I listen to it, but a lot of people are like, if I don't 100% agree with 100% of the opinions, then I'm moving on. But I love podcasts because you can dip into something like that and get a lot of good value out of it.
And thinking points. And sometimes it's a case of provoking a conversation. Like, I never thought of it like that. Okay, and then you delve into it. So that's why I kind of like his podcast.
Okay. Right, now here's a hard one. Sell your podcast in less than 6 words. Why should people listen to your show?
Oh, me again first?
Go on.
Okay. If you want to get an insight into black...
Wait, we've gone over 6. Insight into... Guys, we didn't rehearse this. I don't know if you can tell.
Black British culture.
Great. Katherine, less than 6 words.
White mom culture. Gossip, honesty, litigation.
I love it. Okay, Marv, dream guest to have on your show?
Do you have Jordan Peterson on?
Yeah, I would. I'd love Jordan Peterson, but I think dream guest for me, I know it's going to sound weird, Prince Charles.
I think it's called King Charles now.
Like Prince Charles now, like, oh, no, sorry, oh, yeah. Sorry, God save the Queen and all that.
We can make that happen, right? I'm sure we've got connections. Do you know what we're gonna run at?
King Charles, sorry. Do you know what it is? Because I'm so used to, do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Do you know what? I think that's all we have time for, and what a great note to end on. Thank you so much to both of you. Thank you, Katherine. Thank you, Marv, for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.
That was awesome. That was awesome. I have one question. Marv talked about some of the niche things he learned about his audience. Most niche thing you've learned about your audience? Anything kind of weird, wacky?
That I am embraced by more heteronormative older men than I thought. They're very interested in tapping into a psyche like mine through my podcast, and they email me, and it's not the explicit emails that I would expect to receive from them.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Massive hand for Acast.
Thanks, guys.